So we should start tonight with the SITREP situation report. It is Wednesday, the 9th of January. It is about 9 o'clock in the evening, 1 true time zone. And as of right now, I'm still here. But there is a 50-50 shot that I'm going to have to run out of this episode in the middle of it. So this is going to be an adventure for all three and kind of four, and I guess you could almost even say five of us, as I might need to leave, Aaron might need to go to the hospital, and Sprig may be here. I mean, it is theoretically feasible, although I certainly don't hope it's the case, that by the time this show stops recording, I could have needed to leave, go to the hospital, and Aaron could hypothetically birth our second child before you two shut up.
That could happen before you leave the house. Let me tell you.
let's not even go there. Oh, God. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, John, you have some experience with this.
Yeah, I don't think I've told that story at length on this podcast. We don't need to do it today.
We should start with some follow-up, though. Let's talk about Meltdown, Spectre, and all the things that are happening. My timeline's a little fuzzy because I've been a bit preoccupied. So we did have this link from Apple during the last recording, right?
We did
with
not.
Their official... Oh, we did not. Okay, I'm sorry.
They hadn't posted it yet.
You guys been talking about the WebKit one?
No. This is the original official...
Oh, okay. Because the WebKit one is also excellent.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to read that. I've been preoccupied.
If you have that link, put it in the notes.
I'll
Marco.
dig it up.
I've already downloaded the update, but I didn't read the note for it. It's nice that they released the Safari update for old OSs. I'm staring at El Cap right here, and I got the Safari update, which, I mean, that's another complaint people have about the Spectre Meltdown thing and how Apple is handling it. They're like, where is the kernel update for any version other than the very, very latest version of macOS? But that's not really how Apple rolls, which is kind of disappointing. You would hope that there's one aspect that Apple should adopt a little bit more of the enterprisey mindset to say for super critical security things, maybe consider backporting some number of versions instead of just saying, no, the only thing that exists is the very, very bleeding edge. But, Apple's going to Apple.
Apple is going to Apple. All right, so can you walk me through the official Apple statement, if you don't mind, John?
Oh, there's nothing much there. It's just another one of these, fairly straightforward explanations. Just the last time that Apple didn't even have one, and it was just like they were just a little bit late in putting it out, but it's not a super great explanation. Lots of people have been sending links to explanations that help them understand what this is all about. Most of them I found to be not to my liking because it's a difference in audience. It's like if most of the words we said in the last show didn't make any sense to you, you need a different kind of explanation. So those people who need that kind of explanation are the ones reading articles where they compare it to a waiter or to music or a factory or all sorts of things that use analogies to real world things to try to explain to people, how instruction pipelines work, what speculative execution is, what branch prediction is, stuff like that. And so it's been interesting to see the different variety of analogies and metaphors that are used in those articles, but apparently a lot of them are really helping people understand this in a way that, for example, our previous show would not have and did not. So we apologize for that, but we're glad there's lots of good explainers out there for you. I think the Raspberry Pi folks had one of the more popular, layperson's explanation of it with a great capper at the end where they say, after many, many paragraphs of laborious explanation, Raspberry Pi doesn't suffer this because we use CPUs that don't have speculative execution, which is not really something to brag about because that means they use cheap, very old, very weak CPUs because, Raspberry Pi is a small, cheap, low-powered thing. But it's nice for them. And let's see, what else has come out about this in the meantime? The second link here in the same topic is this is the best web page I've found showing what the speed hit is on the Mac for the patches that work around this. And as always, it's not, there's no clear-cut answer. So as the summary of this article says, the main question to be answered is if the performance impact exists. Yes, it is very clear. You can look at the graphs. There's the performance impact. Is it relevant? It depends. And that's the worst kind of answer. What do you mean it depends? It really totally depends on exactly what you're doing, exactly how many system calls you're making. Another interesting thing to come out of this article is another measurement of the performance hit of APFS versus HFS Plus, which like they weren't intending to measure that, but they sort of accidentally did when they compared like Sierra to High Sierra without the patch to High Sierra with the patch. The performance impact of APFS, the negative performance impact of APFS, encrypted APFS, far outweighs the impact of this security patch. So I don't know if we've talked about that before, but APFS in general is slower than HFS Plus in most of the benchmarks, which I would think to be expected because HFS Plus was a file system that was tuned to be acceptably fast on a computer in 1989 or whatever. So it's massively overmatched by the power we have now. And APFS has way more features and is a way more modern file system, and so is not going to be as fast as something that used to run really well on a Mac SE. Hopefully APFS will get faster in the future, right? But it's very new. But it just plain does more. It has more features than HFS Plus and more safety.
The space gray peripherals are selling for hilarious prices on eBay. The three of us were kind of giggling about the thought that, since these are so rare, that they may command, probably will command some amount of premium over what a regular device would look like. So quick refresher, the iMac Pro, since it's that sexy space gray, the peripherals also have to be sexy space gray. And by default, you can order the computer with a 10, what do you call a full size? Not a 10 keyless, a full size Bluetooth Apple keyboard, and either a Magic Mouse or a Magic Trackpad, or you can optionally, for some amount of money, I don't remember how much, you can get both the trackpad and the mouse. These are only available if you buy a iMac Pro, so naturally they're very, very fancy and special. Somebody has dug up some eBay listings that, if you're listening to this far in the future, will probably not be available. But a triplet of Magic Keyboard, Trackpad, and Mouse is not going for, went as of yesterday for $1,080. So that's $1,000 for a trackpad, a keyboard, and a mouse. Oh, and presumably a bespoke lightning cable, actually.
The black lightning cable. When you include that, of course it puts it over the top.
Of course,
Can't
of
got
course.
a black lightning cable. I refuse to believe these are real people. These have to be speculators.
But there's at least if you search eBay sold items for like Space Gray Magic Trackpad, you get all these listings, and there's not...
Oh yeah, no, they are. That's why I put this in there, because we thought they wouldn't sell for that much, and they totally are selling for a lot of money. The question is, who are they selling to? And that's the secondary thing. Is like, so are real people actually putting this much stock in this, or is it speculation where people believe that this will be a high ticket item for a long time? I continue to believe that Apple will eventually allow you to buy peripherals that are this color separately, which will, of course, destroy the market for these things. So I hope the people who bought them are able to resell them at a profit before that happens. But I don't know when that will happen. Presumably.
I mean, this is kind of like trying to be like an iPhone speculator. The biggest market for these things is behind us, and it's going down every day, not up. So like anybody buying these for this price, like they're the worst speculators in the world. These are only going to get more common and more available over time. Like they're really cool right now, or really 2 weeks ago, because they're brand new and no one's seen them before in these colors. But like that is a very temporary thing. The window of time to make a profit there is very short. The
only way it would work is if Apple never makes another space gray computer with space gray peripherals, like if the iMac Pro, like they continue to make the iMac Pro, but it changes color, and this was like the only generation of these things, then you could have some value. But just ask somebody, Stephen Hackett, with an Apple TV, not that one. No, not that one. No, the other one. No, not that one. The black, no, not this black one. The other. I don't know how to refer to the Apple TV. It was a giant Macintosh computer that could also be a television. It was also hideously ugly, and it was also black. And it was and that was it. There wasn't like a huge collection of black desktop Macintosh computers surrounding that. Even that doesn't retain its value that well. So, I mean, now you, Marco, you've got me convinced. Now I'm starting to hope that these really are individual people, because like if they're speculators, they're probably going to be disappointed. But if they're individuals, maybe they're happy with their $1,000 purchase of a keyboard and mouse and black lightning and black Apple stickers. We forgot about that. You can get those with the Mac Pro though. Those are a dime a dozen. Just go buy a trash can. They'll throw in buy some black stickers. They'll throw in a trash can for free.
Wow. So regardless, as of the time of this recording, that full set went for $1,000. A trackpad is for sale for $310 or more, and a Magic Mouse is for sale for $295 or more. And really, while you guys were talking, it occurred to me that if Erin really and truly loved me, she would go ahead and have this baby immediately, because I'm going to be purchasing my full set from Underscore, and he has told me that he will bring them down when he comes to visit to meet Sprigg. So the quicker that she can pop this baby out, the quicker I can get my fancy black peripherals. So really, this is all about me, and that's what she really needs to be considerate of.
I mean, there is a faster way to get them.
On eBay, you mean? You got to wait for the auctions to end.
I believe it's apple.com/iMac-pro-buy or something like that.
Oh, yeah. You got to buy a whole computer. Yeah. Although it's only 5 times expensive as the peripherals by themselves.
That isn't that unreasonable.
Yeah. I already bought mine from Jason, by the way. I mean, I use the Apple Messages payment thing. Is that the first time I used it? Maybe I sent Casey some money.
It is called Apple Pay Cash. And I have now sold 2 computers with it.
I remember. Anyway, mine is on my way to me, my keyboard, just the keyboard itself. I did not pay $1,000.
Jason took pity on you.
And answered, no, I'm not going to sell the keyboard. It's not for sale.
I just noticed today I had a friend of mine had purchased for me a couple of pieces of clothing from the Apple Park Visitor Center, and I paid him with Apple Pay Cash. Apparently disclosed at some point that I'd forgotten, or just not well disclosed, that if you use a credit card for Apple Pay Cash, there's a 3% service charge, which I was not aware of. So this $50 transaction was like a $52 transaction. Not a big deal, but it was very surprising when I'm looking at my iMessage history and seeing it was, $50.20 or whatever the hell it was. And then I'm looking at my bank statement and it's saying it was $52 or, again, whatever the numbers were. And I did not expect that. So pro tip, if you're going to be using Apple Pay Cash, use a debit card.
But did you get frequent flyer miles or Amazon Prime points or cash back to offset that 3%?
I will eventually get a smattering of cash back, probably less than 3%.
Yeah, but you're not going to get 3%.
Exactly.
This is the entire racket of the credit card business is like, they have these, I forget what are they called, interchange fees, something like that, which is part of that 3%. And it's like,
but usually the vendor pays it, not you.
Yeah, like there's no way to charge money to a credit card without somebody paying a fee of at least around 2.5%, depending on their merchant deal and everything. It's like someone's paying that somewhere if using a credit card. Debit cards are all different and don't work that way. Bank transfers are different and don't work that way. But credit cards all work that way. Like someone is paying that fee. John is right. Usually it's the vendor. In this case, it's like if you want the person to receive this money, then you have to pay the fee. If you want them to receive $50 and not 47 or whatever, you're paying 52 to give them 50. But that's just the nature of credit cards and sending money online.
Yeah, I'm not, disappointed by this, or if I am, I'm disappointed in myself for not having remembered, but it was something that I did not expect. So this is your PSA, ladies and gentlemen. Use a debit card if you can. Also note that the rewards that you're going to get for that are probably not exceeding about 1.5%. It's that would like the really good rewards end up being along the lines of 1.5%. Anybody out there who thinks like, oh, I'll pay the surcharge for something, but I'll get it back in rewards. No, you won't. The house always wins. We had a couple of people write in that are either ex-Apple geniuses or Apple geniuses, and they made the same point, which was part of the reason that Apple geniuses tend to be reluctant to do a battery replacement is that oftentimes that isn't really the problem. Sometimes a slowdown or perhaps a really tough battery situation is because you've been playing a shed load of Pokemon Go and you didn't disclose that when you were talking to the genius. And the easier answer, rather than either charging Apple money or charging the customer money, even more importantly, is to just say, hey, maybe cool it on the catching the Pokemans. Maybe that'll do a little better for you. So that was an interesting point I hadn't considered.
Yeah, it's like you said, we got this feedback a lot, and it's not like they're refusing to do it for your own good. It's what they're trying to avoid is a situation where a customer comes in and says, I have a problem. And then the customer, and this must happen all the time, the customer decides they know what the solution to the problem is. This isn't exclusive to battery. It's just whatever, anything. It could be your car or a vacuum cleaner or whatever. Customer has a problem and customer says, and by the way, I'm also sure I know how to fix this problem. I want you to replace the belt on my whatever. I want you to, give me a new whatever. Like they have diagnosed the problem. They know exactly what's wrong. and they just say, look, just don't give me a runaround. Just, put a new battery in my car. Right? I mean, this is marketing over these stupid electric cars. You know what I mean? The 12-volt thing, lead acid.
I have one of those too.
Yeah, maybe the problem is like an engine control unit, or maybe it's a gasket that's blown or whatever. And like, so the person who wants to look at your car says, let us, the car fixing experts, look at your car and run all our little diagnostics, and we'll tell you what's wrong with it. But it's like, no. The customer says, I don't care what you find. I know that this is exactly what I need. And service centers or Apple or whatever are reluctant to do that, because if they say, okay, we'll do it, and they do it, even if they do it for free, but especially if they charge you to do it, right? And then they give the thing back to you and say, okay, we did what you asked. We replaced your whatever. Here you go. Then they come back the next day and said the problem's still there. And now you have this argument. It's like, well, we didn't say this would fix your problem, but you insisted we do this because you thought it would fix your problem. But it turns out it didn't. And that's a conversation you never want to have with the customer, because they're going to be like, I don't care, blah, 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 blah. So what Apple wants to do is, you, customer, just describe your problem, and then we'll figure out what it takes to fix it, whether that's give you a completely new device or replace a bunch of parts or whatever it's going to be. But if you come to us and demand we do a specific thing, especially if you demand we do it for free under warranty, it could just be a waste of both of our times. So that's all well and good, and we've heard that from a lot of people, and I know where they're coming from, and sometimes I know where customers are coming from, because sometimes I'm that customer who says, look, I just do this. Like, just replace this thing. I won't yell at you if it doesn't work, but I'm pretty sure this is it. But my question to a couple of these Apple geniuses was, okay, fine, whatever. Say somebody comes in like I did and says, there's nothing wrong with my phone. I don't actually have a problem. All I want to do is give you money. In exchange for that money, you take out the battery that's in there and put in a new one. And for the most part, the Apple geniuses said, yeah, we'll do that. Like, as long as we're all on the same page, that there's not an actual problem that we're trying to solve. Like, there's no acknowledged problem at all. It's just a thing you want to happen. Not going to do it under warranty for free if there's no problem, obviously, because that's just wasteful. And that was one angle that some people brought up, is the waste of, like, if you have a perfectly good battery, us replacing it, even if you pay us, is not particularly environmentally conscious, because batteries are all filled with heavy metals and other things that are not great. So why would you take a perfectly good battery and throw it away and replace it with another one? So I kind of see that angle too. But in the end, I feel like if someone comes in with a wad of money, especially if it's $80 and not $30, and says, my phone has no problems, but please replace my battery, you should do so. And like I said, I did that, and they did replace it for me, but there was a weird pause about it. So it would be better if there was less mystery surrounding this process, and it would be much better if more customers knew how accessible battery replacements are for their iOS devices. Of course, use past tense, how accessible they were, because the other strain of feedback we got is from long-suffering Apple retail employees who are now in the midst of what they described as a terrible situation where many, many angry customers are coming to the stores wanting new batteries, and they don't have any new batteries, and there's like a week-long wait time, and people are super angry, and they're like, I want my free battery. And the public understanding of this problem, as we predicted, is not very good. People are just angry and just want either new batteries for free or new phones, and they're even more angry when you tell them that even if we could give you what you want, you have to wait a week. So, bummer for Apple, but it's kind of their own deal.
This is it reminds me of the Takata, whatever it is, airbag recall, because I got a notice for my car, I want to say like a year ago, maybe even more, that, your airbag is screwed up, and hey, it may kill you, but there's nothing we can do about it right now because we don't have any. And it wasn't replaced until just a couple of months back. That, to me, is a far more egregious issue, in that if I got in an accident, the airbag that's supposed to save my life might actually injure me. Whereas this is just, my phone isn't working as quickly as I want. And man, I heard a lot of grumpy people that were upset at me for not, taking Apple, behind the shed and shooting it in the face or whatever, because I was not extremely grumpy about this battery issue. That analogy fell down as soon as I opened my mouth.
Casey has interesting child discipline techniques.
Yeah, that fell down as soon as I opened my mouth, but it was too late. But anyway, we'll fix it in post. The point I'm driving at, though, is there were a lot of people that were really grumpy. I know we won't. That were really grumpy that I wasn't grumpy about this, slowdown thing. And I'm sorry, but hey, I'm sorry if an older phone isn't as fast as it once was. Like, everyone needs to take a damn chill pill. It's frustrating, yes, but holy cow, people are really worked up about this. It's not an airbag. It's not a malfunctioning seatbelt. It's a telephone. It'll be okay.
Speaking of cars and recalls, I had an annoying experience with my Honda recently. They had some recall thing, and I was going in for regular service anyway, or maybe it was just encouraging me to go in. But anyway, some recall, I'm like, fine, whatever, do my recall thing. It's free, not a big deal. It was like a battery. It was one of those paranoid things where, like, if you get a bunch of salt on this battery terminal, it could potentially spark and do a blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's never going to happen. Like, yes, there's salt everywhere, but I'm not afraid my thing is going to explode. You can, I can see the battery. It's sitting right there. It's not in danger of spewing flame. Anyway, whatever. So, fine. They do some battery terminal whatchamahoozy. And I thought it was fine. And then, like, 2 months later, I get another recall message. I'm like, oh, I can ignore that. I already did that recall. And my wife was like, no, this is a different recall. Like, for the same thing, for the battery terminal? And my vague understanding of this, I was mostly just too annoyed to look into it very deeply, was that the first recall was like a temporary patch where they just threw some goop on something or sealed something up to prevent this potential sparking giant explosion from the battery, because they didn't have enough of the replacement part that they should have replaced it with. And the second recall is, hey, guess what? We got the replacement parts now, so come back in and we'll get rid of that little temporary fix we did and put in the replacement part. I suppose it's nice that they would do 2 recalls for free, but as anyone with a car knows, even more so than with phones, and maybe equally so with an all-in-one computer like Marco's iMac, the worst part of any of these things is having to go in to the dealer or having to go in at all. It doesn't really matter what they do when they're there or if it costs no money. The time and hassle of just getting the car to the dealer and waiting while they do whatever is so much worse than any other aspect of the experience that it almost doesn't matter what they do. So yeah, I had to go to the dealer 2 times. At least with the Apple thing, you only have to go once, unless I suppose you take a 2-hour drive to the mall and get there and find out they tell you that you'll have to come back in a week when they have batteries in stock.
Yeah, I've had similar issues with service issues with Tesla. Like, they just are out of every part ever, all the time. And like, they had a parking brake recall last summer. I still haven't gotten it done. I'm still waiting for them to call me to tell me they have my part in. Like, I've called them like every 3 months or so to check on this. Like, they still don't have it.
But in the meantime, don't park on hills? What do they tell you?
Yeah, I don't. It was apparently a minor thing, but I ordered snow tires in early December sometime. And when you order something from Tesla's online parts store, something like that has to be installed somehow, somewhere, what they do is they just deliver it to your local service center, and then they call you or email you when it's ready, and you set up an appointment to get it installed. So I ordered these snow tires in early December. Time goes by. I got nothing. I get no emails. There's no order status lookup page. There's nothing. It's like an online store designed in 1992. It's the most bare bones thing ever. You halfway expect to see a clear form button on the bottom. Like, it's that bare bones. So middle of last week, I'm like, it's snowing constantly. I really could use the snow tires. Where the heck are they? And I still had nothing from Tesla. And I got an email saying, please rate your recent service experience at Tesla. And I was like, I didn't get any service recently. I wonder if maybe their system just didn't send me that email, screwed up in all these different ways, but maybe it thought that them arriving at the service center was a service visit and generated that email. So I called the service center, and sure enough, they're like, oh yeah, we have them in now. Like, oh,
they've just been chilling out.
Thanks for telling me.
They're the office mascot now. You're for snow tires.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, when do you want to come and have them installed? Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I'm having them installed tomorrow. Have you. Yeah, it's like everything with Tesla service and parts is a disaster in just trying to get things there, and availability. Everything's constantly back ordered, and the cars are so great. I'm so happy with the car, but God, if you ever need to wait for a part, it's not a good experience.
Yeah, it's a bummer. All right, so tell me about iPhone 10 screen burn-in.
There's a question we had about the Apple's first OLED phone. OLED has burn-in issues, supposedly worse burn-in issues than LCD. But of course, Android phones had OLED screens for a long time, so presumably it was a known quantity. This is the first test I've seen of an actual iPhone 10 versus a couple of popular Android phones with OLED screens for burn-in. Unfortunately, it is all in What are we going to say? Is that Chinese, Korean? I'm not good at looking at text and telling exactly what it's saying. Korean, I usually look for the closed circles because there's.
Yeah, this looks more Korean to me, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, Chinese and Japanese don't have the closed circles. I think I can identify Japanese the best. Anyway, all that is to say, I don't know what it says except what Google Translate tells me. There's a YouTube video and an article, but the upshot of it appears to be that the iPhone X resisted burn-in much, much better than the two other Android phones that they tested. They had it on full brightness on the same image for like hundreds of hours to get very mild burn-in. So it looks pretty good. Probably better than, like, say, my iPad 3 or many other past LCD iOS devices that I found suffered pretty severe image retention after a couple of years. Obviously, this iPhone X is newish. It's not a 3-year-old iPhone X, but compared to a couple of contemporary phones, it looks like it's pretty good. So I think Apple got a pretty good screen here.
Chat room says Korean.
Survey says
Closed circles. Closed circles. That's the secret.
We are sponsored this week by Fracture. Beautiful photos printed directly on glass. Visit fracture.me and get 15% off your first Fracture order with code ATP17. Fracture prints are awesome. We have them all over our house. We have huge ones. We have tiny ones, all the sizes in between. Fracture prints are just great. Whenever people see them, they always ask, what are those? Or if they're podcast listeners, they say, are those Fracture prints? Because they just look so nice in person. And also, they make wonderful gifts. We've given them as gifts numerous times, and we get great responses each time, especially for like getting pictures of, say, our kid to give to his grandparents. These make such good gifts. Now, even though it's after the holidays, there's going to be times throughout the year where you should get a gift for somebody in your family or a friend and give them a wonderful Fracture print of something that'll be meaningful to them. And I'm telling you, it'll go over well. They have a sleek, frameless design. The prints go edge to edge on these thin pieces of glass. They come with everything you need right in the box to hang it on your wall. They are actually surprisingly lightweight because it's a very thin piece of glass. And what holds it up is like a very thin piece of almost like a foam core kind of board behind it. So you don't have the weight of like having it be all like solid, like 2-inch thick glass. So you don't have to worry about it like falling off your wall, breaking, etc. They're wonderful. Trust me, if you want photos printed, and you know what, you should sometimes, because you don't want your photos to just live in your Instagram feed for like 2 seconds and then you never see them again. Get things printed that mean something to you. And the best way to do that is Fracture. So go to fracture.me and get 15% off your first order with code ATP17. If they ask you where you heard about them from, where you came from, make sure to tell them ATP. It helps support the show, tells them where their ads are working. So once again, fracture.me, code ATP17 to get 15% off your first order of those wonderful, beautiful glass photo prints. And when they ask where you came from, please say ATP. Thanks so much to Fracture for sponsoring our show. I do have a very quick review of my iMac Pro after finally having a week of like real use. In this week, I have done lots of podcast editing. I have done Xcode work, programming work with iOS apps, with my one iOS app. And I have also done a lot of video transcoding. I ripped a couple of Blu-rays and did some video transcoding work, including some pretty heavy ones like trying to do H.265 and everything else. I have yet to hear the fan spin up. Like, I have thrown everything I can at this CPU. Granted, I've done almost nothing to the GPU because that's, my workload is typically very CPU heavy and pretty light on the GPU. Oh, I also imported, I think 400 pictures from the Sony A7R III, which we'll get to, and did had Lightroom render one-to-one previews on import, which I usually do for various reasons. So I threw everything I could at the CPU. I've seen all the cores either be maxed out or be almost maxed out for sustained periods. I cannot get the fan to spin up to a level that it's audible.
Did you play games?
No, of course not. I don't play games. But it was
you get to play some games on your computer.
Why? We have the Nintendo Switch. It's the best game platform ever. Why would I play games on my computer?
Because you want to stress the CPU and the GPU at the same time. Double the heat.
No, but I don't care. Do you play games on your fax machine? Like, no, this is
for science, not for you. It's for science.
Anyway, so all this is to say that so far in my week of using this computer pretty heavily, I'm just incredibly happy with it. It is so good. It is so fast. It is so quiet. It just has no limits for me. Like, not everything is perfectly fast and stable, but that's down to software, not hardware. Like, it is just so damn good. I'm incredibly happy with the iMac Pro, and I would say it is, I wouldn't say extremely likely that I wouldn't ever need another Mac Pro again, but
okay.
But it is,
everyone mark this down.
I'm just saying it is somewhat likely that I might not need the Mac Pro. Well, I don't need the Mac Pro, but I might not want a Mac Pro after this. Like, this is so damn good that even though I mean, I think, John's assertion last episode was correct that there's pretty much no chance that I don't at least buy the Mac Pro. So I am probably going to buy it, but man, this is good. And anybody who thinks, oh, maybe this won't be as good as the Mac Pro, I should wait. Honestly, I don't think you need to wait. This is the new Mac Pro for all intents and purposes, and it's so good that if you have a need for this kind of computer right now, just get this. It's amazing.
I'm glad you like it. I really am. I think it's hilarious that you think you would even, for a fleeting moment, say no to a Mac Pro. I mean, this is like when I was talking about the Apple Watch that I didn't want. Or there were like 3 or 4 things in a row that I told everyone I didn't want and then ended up immediately reneging on.
BMWs, Macs.
Exactly. I don't think I want a HomePod, so let's just put that on record right now.
I don't think I do either.
You have no problem sticking to that one if they never ship it.
Good point. But I think it's pretty obvious that both of us will end up with a HomePod.
So to address Mania in the chat, can you functionally tell that this is a much better computer than the regular iMac without benchmarking or stress testing? That's a very good question. You can tell that just whenever you do anything multi-threaded, it is noticeably faster, obviously, because I'm going from 4 cores to 10. So like you're going to see that difference. Like that's a big difference. It also, besides like, the cosmetic stuff like the space gray and everything, it also just being able to operate no matter what you throw at it in silence is a pretty big difference from the 5K iMac. The 5K iMac, for all, like, as I mentioned last episode, having used that computer for 3 years, it's a great computer, and for a lot of people, that is plenty. That's fine. But the one thing that always got me about it that was not true of Mac Pros is that you would hear the fan spin up and down as if you were pushing the CPU really hard for things, you'd hear the fan come up and down with it. Whereas with this, that doesn't happen. So that is a pretty big difference if you're doing things that really stress it, and if you care about fan noise. If one of those things is not true for you, then you're fine with the regular iMac. But it's you are definitely getting something for the additional money here, in addition to the performance increases and the different architecture and the ECC and stuff like that. I would say the ability to run in that silence could easily come to the iMac, to the regular iMac, if they redesigned it thermally to be more like this. But they can't do that, as far as I can tell, until they remove all ability to put a 3.5-inch hard drive in there. Because if you look at how the internals of these things are laid out, the reason the iMac Pro is able to cool itself, for not only to cool itself with just such a high thermal load with all these high-end components in it, but I think one of the reasons they're able to do it so quietly is because they have a giant heatsink and fan assembly located right in the middle of the back, the thickest part of the enclosure, and that is right where the 3.5-inch hard drive goes in a regular iMac. So if they continue to ship iMacs with hard drive options available, which honestly, I think the time for that is just about done. Probably the next major generation of iMac, I assume they're probably going to drop the hard drive option. And if they do, then they can adopt this kind of thermal design, and then they can run it in silence too.
The other place people might notice a speed difference on the iMac Pro, which is unfortunately undercut by an even more dramatic speed difference, is if you're coming from a computer like a iMac 5K or even older that has a spinning drive, even if it's an Fusion drive configuration, and you do lots of reading and writing very large files. And I was going to say, you really notice it when you duplicate a 3 gig file, but unfortunately APFS makes duplicating a 3 gig file in the same volume instantaneous. So it kind of kills your ability to see the benchmark. But what I'm getting at is that the SSDs in the iMac Pro are very, very fast, especially for large bulk transfers of huge files. It could be that it ends up being, if you're not hooked up to 10 gig Ethernet, your 3 gigs per second of disk I/O, you're never going to see that. You're never going to see it on the same volume because APFS will instantly copy it, and you're never going to see it across the wire because you're limited by the speed of Ethernet. But rest assured that the disk is much faster. So if you do things that do a lot of I/O, say just reading a very large file into RAM or saving out a large file, you may notice those progress bars speed up. And that's not a multi-threaded thing. It's just like, if you're ever used to staring at a progress bar when disk I/O is going on, that progress bar should go faster on the iMac Pro than it does on other computers. But yeah, if you're just running single-threaded applications, the iMac Pro is actually slower than the top-end 5K iMac for some single-threaded tasks, depending on how many cores you get in it. But it's all about the multi-core. And I suppose if you're doing anything having to do with the GPU in the iMac Pro, even though Marco never uses it to do anything except for show windows on his screen, is way, way faster than the 5K iMacs.
I think Lightroom uses it.
Well, plus, I've heard reports from Marco, from Underscore, and from Jason Snell about how much faster FFmpeg is and transcoding video is on their fancy pants iMac Pros. And pretty much everyone has independently concluded that it's about twice as fast as their prior 5K iMacs. Now, I think everyone had older 5K iMacs than I have, but nevertheless, it's basically a 2x improvement. And that makes me sad because although I don't transcode stuff as much as I probably paint it, I do it often enough that I wish I had more speed with which to do it. But do I want to spend $5,000+ to transcode videos quicker? No, I don't. Speaking of spending a shedload of money, Marco, tell me about your camera.
I love that. That's my name always comes after that phrase.
It sure does.
So, sometime last year, I described that I had sold my formerly beloved Sony A7R II to Stephen Hackett, incidentally, because I was not happy with its speed and battery life were the two big issues with it. And I had gone back to Canon SLRs back from whence I came, and I was very happy with the handling and everything of Canon SLRs. I was never as happy with the pictures I would get out of the Canon SLRs, because the Sony had not only a pretty big megapixel advantage, and the camera I'm talking about on the Canon side is the 5D Mark IV, which is an amazing camera. And so, but the main problem was that it didn't have the megapixels. It did have the anti-aliasing filter over the sensor, so you couldn't quite get the level of sharpness out of the Canon. And it didn't have as advanced of an autofocus system. And so my hit rate was not as good. It also didn't have in-body stabilization, so it also just kind of further lowered the hit rate. And it couldn't quite achieve the high ISO numbers or dynamic range and shadows that the Sony could. It was very close, but it was a noticeable downgrade in those areas. But I was happy with the Canon because it was just so much more pleasurable to use because everything was so much faster and it handled so much better and everything. And I would still stand by the fact that if you are shooting events, like if you're in some kind of pro role, I think the Canon line is still what you want. And maybe Nikon too. I'm sorry, Nikon fans. I don't know anything about Nikon really. I rented a D750 once and it was great. But when it came time to buy, I wasn't that convinced by the lens lineup for what I actually would want in my lenses, and so I didn't go Nikon at any of these points. But anyway, the main problem I had with the Canon again was just that I wasn't getting my favorite images out of it. Like as I was looking back, like most of my favorite images were shot by the Sony, and the Canon was so much more pleasurable to use and way faster, and the battery life was way better. But I just was not getting images that blew me away out of it. It really is made for pro use, and that's where it really does excel. But that's not what I needed. I really just wanted a camera that gave me shockingly good images. That just made me feel something like about how good they were, and the Canon just didn't do that. Late in 2017, so a couple months ago, Sony announced the A7R III, and it doesn't actually change that much from the A7R II, but two of the big things it changes are battery life and performance. The two big problems I have with the two. Yeah. It's the same sensor, a couple of minor improvements here and there, but for the most part, it's fairly similar. But a battery that's like 2.5 times the size, and a significantly upgraded image processor and interface and everything else. So it's just a lot snappier. I decided since Christmas, the Christmas season is by far my heaviest photography time. I decided right before Christmas, you know what? Let me try it. Because one thing I did when I left the Sony ecosystem, I kept my two favorite lenses, the 35 2.8 and the 55 1.8 primes. I kept both of those thinking, if I ever go back, I'll have these lenses. I won't have to rebuy them. If I don't go back after a couple years, I'll sell them. They'll still have a lot of value, and it's not going to matter whether I sell them now or in a year or two. So I still had the lens. So all I did was buy the body, and I figured, you know what? Let me try it. If it's terrible, I can return it or sell it or something. And so I shot all through Christmas with it, and it is fantastic. It is so, so good. It is still not to the levels of performance and battery life that the Canon offers, that most SLRs can offer, but it's now close enough. It's now like those things are not huge hindrances that annoy me while using it. They're just now very minor, limitations, but it's a massive difference in those two areas. And I have taken shots that I just love from this camera. Like, it is just so good. And because of the features it offers and some other performance areas it offers, especially in regards to autofocus features, autofocus performance, and low light performance and in-body stabilization, it is just an incredibly high keeper rate of what I shoot compared to my regular SLR use. So I'm now back in the Sony world, I guess, and it's really, really a very good camera. And it is not cheap. None of this stuff is cheap. I mean, the camera is like $3,000, and the lenses I just mentioned, I think, are $700 or $800 each. This is not a cheap thing to do, but no camera that offers this level of performance is cheap. The Canon SLRs aren't cheap either. So within the realm of what you get, I think it is well priced, and it is really, really good. And I'm very glad I have it.
So what does Tiff think of it? Because she was, even when you had the R2, she was the SLR, the Canon SLR diehard who didn't want to come over to the Sony side of the fence, or the mirrorless side of the fence even.
Yeah, she very much prefers the Canons. But she said over Christmas that she was glad that I got this, because the Sony has pretty big advantages when you're shooting indoors in low light, which a lot of our Christmas shooting is exactly that. And so, and it's also just, small and unobtrusive and easy to handle and easy to like have around like in the living room while we're opening gifts and stuff like that. So it's like, it was a very, very good camera for our needs for Christmas. And so even though it is not her favorite camera the rest of the year, she was very happy I have it. And it's going to continue to be my camera basically. And the Canons will resume being her cameras the way they used to be. But yeah, so
she's glad you're around to use the camera she doesn't like.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and she's glad
looks good on you though.
And she's glad that I no longer need to use hers.
Don't laugh at that. You didn't get that reference.
I didn't. No, I was laughing at your voice. Really.
Exactly.
Trust me, that was a dead-on imitation of the thing I was referencing.
Good. Congratulations. I give you 1 point.
As far as you know, it's dead on.
And may God have mercy on your soul. Actually, that was no points. Yeah, that's all right.
Yep.
Anyway. All right, so you like your camera. That's good. So what are the complaints about other than cost? Like, so are you 100% happy now, or outside of the fact that you're broke, or are you just 90% happy?
I am pretty happy. I mean, the battery life is now good enough. Like it's to the point where you can. I was able to shoot with it like all day and not have to swap batteries, and that's way different than the A7R II. Like I laughed. The A7R II, when it came out, it came with 2 batteries in the box. That's how bad the battery life is on the A7R II, that they ship it with 2 batteries. Like, I've never seen any electronic of any kind that came with 2 of its own batteries because the battery life was so bad they knew you would need both. Like, I've literally never seen that before or since. But, this one only comes with 1 for a reason. Like, you really don't, like, 1 is fine. I have a second one just because I was afraid. So I bought a second one, and, like, I did swap it a couple times, like, during downtime on Christmas Day, like, when we had, like, no need to shoot for, like, 20 minutes. I would swap anyway, but I didn't need to. And I swapped twice, and I like compared like the percentages, and it's like, oh, I didn't even need to swap at all. This is great. So Battery life, huge thumbs up. The performance of things like, reviewing images quickly to make sure like you got the focus right and everything. It is way faster than it was. It also has a pretty good feature where on the A7, this is really nitpicky, and no one who doesn't own this will even care. But quickly, this is a pretty big upgrade. The A7R II, if you would try to do something while it was writing to the card, it would say operation not available for a lot of things that you try to do. This one doesn't do that anymore. That's a huge, so like that's like a big waiting point from A7R II that is gone on A7R III. So anyway, stuff like that. There's a number of big and small improvements that remove tons of friction and annoyances from this camera that were there in the A7R II. And the A7R II is an awesome camera already. Like, so to be able to improve on it so substantially in only, I think, 2 years from the original release, like that's pretty good. So very, very happy. At the moment, I really have no major complaints about it.
Good.
Did they change the interface, the horrible, as far as I'm concerned, like menu system interface, the Sony thing?
Oh yeah, they changed it from one disaster to another. So it's a lateral move. It's different. I don't think it's better, but it is different.
So they had to learn where to find things all over again. Was that under the suitcase on screen 7 or?
Yeah.
It looks like they added a little joystick to the back of it too for like focus moving and stuff.
Yes, I don't really use that very often, but it is nice when you need it.
And they replaced the weird Sony AF/MF switch with a button in the middle of it. That's gone now.
Oh yeah, the weird the DMF thing. That's in the menu somewhere. I don't know. I usually keep it in continuous focus.
I use that middle button for eye autofocus. Do you ever use eye autofocus? Is that on this camera?
I always use eye autofocus. That's one of the things that makes the focus engine so awesome on this.
What button do you have that assigned to?
Oh, I just have it on all the time.
I thought it was a button. At least on my camera, I think it's a button you have to assign it to.
I know they upgraded it in some way for this. I never used it on the 2, so I don't know if it's that different in that way. But yeah, the eye priority autofocus is great, and I use it frequently.
Because on my camera, when you do it half button down, it will never do eye autofocus. You have to press another button that you assign to be eye autofocus, and then the little green square zooms right in on their eyeball, and you know it's doing it. Like you get the tiny little green square.
Oh, maybe I'm not doing it.
Face thing.
Because
I think you're not doing it.
There's face priority autofocus. I have that always enabled. But there might be a different thing.
Yeah, the eye autofocus. You'll know you're doing it because it makes the green focus rectangle literally the size of their iris. And it just pinned onto their iris.
All right, I'll play with it. Yeah, because I just get like the whole face as the green rectangle.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up is because I use that button in the middle of the AF/MF switch to be my eye autofocus switch because it's like a thumb thing. But now with that button gone replaced by the joystick, I'm not sure what I'd press. Although you have those programmable buttons, like what the hell they call?
Yeah, there's like 6 different buttons you can program to do whatever you want. So you definitely have options. Also, one thing with the battery life being so much better, it allows me to turn on features that the A7R II had, but that I didn't use because it would kill the battery more. So one example of that is, I believe it's called pre-AF, where like that kind of tries to keep autofocus in a reasonably ready state before you actually push the button halfway down, like just as you're looking around through the viewfinder. That I can now leave on because the battery is not so bad that you have to like turn off half the features to conserve battery life.
And that's pre as fuck.
Wow.
I couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
I know. That's fine. Yeah.
Did they make the grip bigger on the body too? Like the little part you grab with your right hand, does it like poke out from the camera more?
I no longer have the 2, so I can't do a side-by-side comparison, but the whole camera body got slightly deeper. So maybe like the overall grip on it might be slightly bigger. But it's not a huge difference.
I'm trying to figure out where they put the 2.5 times as big battery, like because the battery's in that grip, like the part where you hold it. So the hole where the battery goes has to be bigger. So maybe the grip is bigger.
I think that's why the whole body is bigger. Honestly, it's mostly for the. Oh, there's also now dual card slots. The cards have. The bottom card has UHS-2. It has like the whole extra row of terminals. So does the iMac Pro card reader. So that's way faster now. The camera also has USB 3, and it has both a micro USB and a USB-C port. Either one of which can be used to power the computer, to power the camera, charge the battery, and transfer photos.
Oh, that's nice.
USB-C on camera is my dream. Every time I plug in that terrible some micro USB, whatever that connector is, that always feels like it's broken, and you have to stare at it for 10 minutes to make sure you have it the right way before you try to jam it in.
Yep, that's a big like quality of life improvement, and like just having the camera be able to charge itself over USB, which the 2 could do, but Canon's can't. I love that feature alone, because that means for most places you would bring it, you don't have to bring a separate battery charger unless you really need like super fast charging while one battery's in use. But if you
hold on. I think you're underplaying this. Even with your amount of enthusiasm, my beloved, and I love this camera, my Olympus OMD EM10 has an external battery charger that is not terribly small, and the cable is not terribly conducive to being wrapped up cleanly and nicely. It drives me insane, and I would give almost anything to be able to charge the battery within the camera itself. That in and of itself would make me give all of my money to Sony or Olympus or what have you, so I could charge the stupid batteries in the camera. That's tremendous.
Most Sonys offer that feature, by the way, including John's, I believe, right?
Yeah, but before you say that, though, you should consider what I don't know who came up with this design. It surely wasn't Sony, but anyone who has a camera, fancy or otherwise, is probably familiar with the idea of a panel somewhere on your camera, probably with like a fingernail ridge on it, that they expect you to like disengage somehow, and then it just swings out of the way on this flimsy single pivot and hopefully doesn't crack off. Like the doors you have to move to get at the USB things are like the worst designed, flimsiest, most terrifying, they're going to snap off of my $3,000 camera in 2 seconds if I'm not careful, doors. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, it's possible to make a sturdy door covering a bunch of ports, but cameras don't. They do, like, literally it's like, by how little material can we attach this flimsy plastic door to our camera? Can we do it by, like a human hair? Then do that. And then you can't quite swing them totally out of the way.
I'll tell you what, though. I've never had one break.
I know, because everyone is super careful with them. You treat them with kid gloves. Yeah. You're like, ooh, this looks delicate, so you're super careful with it. The one on my camera is actually not that bad. It actually slides like back and then out, and it's almost like a double hinge thing. But I see the picture of the A7R III, and it's got 3 giant flimsy doors all connected at one point, all of which partially block the ports unless you like twist them like 720 degrees around, like rotate them out of the way until you find the position where they're not blocking the ports. I really wish they would fix that. I mean, I'm not asking for waterproof cameras here. I'm just saying, like, make the doors a little bit more sturdy to match. The rest of the camera looks pretty rugged, but those doors, no good.
Wow.
Well, I wish you didn't like this camera as much as you do, Marcos. I was hoping you'd be like, oh, no, it's still no good. I go back to my Canon because now I want this camera and it costs too much money.
I mean, that would be funnier on the show if I did that, but unfortunately, I don't see it happening. I'm just so much happier with, like, as I said, like the A7R II was such a great camera, but just was let down by a few of its, lacking technologies or choices. And this one fixes them all. So it's really good.
You were pessimistic about it too, by the way, when the camera came out, like, oh, no one had gotten to test it yet. You were like, oh, no, it's probably not going to be that great. Maybe the battery life's better, but whatever. But
I will, yeah, because we had an askatp question like 3-4 months ago when it came out from somebody saying, "Am I going to get it?" And at the time I said, like, I'll see what the reviews say, but I don't think it would be a better enough battery or better enough performance to make it worth it. And then all the early reviews were so glowing and positive, especially on those two fronts. And actually, what made me get it was one of the reviews that said the little nitpicky thing I said earlier, where like you can keep navigating menus while it's writing to the card. As soon as I read that, I'm like, oh my god, huge difference, buying it. That was it.
Have you tried the insane frame rate for the burst photos on anything?
No, I don't usually do high-speed bursts. I think it can go up to like 10 frames a second, something like that.
It goes way higher than you ever really want it to. Like, the iPhone goes pretty insanely high too, but like, I do lots of burst photos because I do action photos on like, the ocean or vacation. And I don't think I've ever gone above the mid setting, which is like half of the rate that my camera is able to do. And I think this one is able to go, you can practically take like slow-mo movies with the number of frames per second. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then unlike the iPhone, you don't have like keep only one frame from the burst. You have to sort through all 900 photos you just took by holding down the shutter button for 3 seconds.
Yeah, and every one of them's like a 45 megabyte RAW file that takes Lightroom like 10 seconds to import.
Yeah, burst photos, especially at the highest speed, it's like a it's like a stress test for your ability to do pics from your own photos, right? Because you have to go through like 100 pictures, all of which are nearly identical to each other, and decide, do I want this one or that one? This one or that one? This one or that one? You're like, they're practically identical. They're 2 pixels different. Which one do I delete? It's lots of fun.
Yeah, I have rarely found bursts worthwhile. I used to, like, back when I was earlier in my photography hobby, like, 5-10 years ago, I kept it in continuous shooting mode and would frequently shoot like a 3 or 4 picture burst for whatever I was getting, and that would be over about a second. But over time, I first of all, I just kind of got better at timing it, and so I didn't need the burst as much. But also, I realized like it was never worth the time or the storage overhead or the processing overhead. I wasn't getting enough out of it, so I just switched to single shot most of the time, and it's totally fine.
Well, for sports, you still need the burst. Like, that's what I'm using it for. If people are in motion, playing a sport or running or, jumping in the ocean waves, burst is the way to go because there's just no other way to get the shot that you want. But yeah, burst is annoying as anything for situations where people are not performing a sport. Because you end up like with 3 pictures of everybody. Yeah.
Burst makes a lot of sense for pros or people shooting soccer or pros shooting soccer. But yeah, my family is not that high motion.
I would recommend it even if if people are like playing badminton in the backyard at a family gathering. Try burst for those things. For people doing sports, if they're performing a motion like they're swatting at the little birdie thing, or they're hitting a volleyball or blocking a jump shot, even just a burst of 3 or 4. Usually all of them are crap, but every once in a while one of them is good, and you realize if I had taken a single shot, the odds of me getting that one weren't good. So when people are in motion in very bright sunlight, obviously. You use that sport preset on your Sony camera that, cranks down the shutter speed, and turn on burst mode, not on the high setting, because then you'll get like every hair moving on their body, but just on the mid or low setting to get a couple of choices. That's how I've gotten most of my good ocean pictures, because you're in waist deep in the ocean and waves are crashing on people. You need a burst to get anything good out of that. And, very often both ends of the burst are garbage. So you're like, boy, it's a good thing. It's a good thing I got that middle part there. If I had just put the shutter down when I thought it was happening, got one picture, odds of it being good are very small.
Nostalgia Null in the chat suggests maybe you could binary search through the burst. It's like, all right, start in the middle.
Solid.
Does what I want before or after this?
The problem is the judgment. The problem is the judgment call. Like, you will get down to sort of more or less the portion of the pose that you want, but then you'll have 5 pictures to choose from that if you had to put them side by side, you'd be hard pressed to say, are these the same picture or are they different?
Yeah, I think if you're getting that little variation, then either your frame rate is too high or you don't need to be shooting bursts.
That's why I say don't go above mid, because these things, the frame rate, I forget what it is. I think it's like, is it like 40 or 60? I don't know. It might be faster than
the A9 is the sport oriented model. That one I think can go faster. I think the A7R III is either like 7 or 10 frames a second, but the A9 I think might be 15 or 20.
No, it's got to be faster than that. Mine is faster than that. Is it because the giant sensor can't get the data onto the card fast enough?
I believe it can't get the data off the sensor fast enough. I think that's usually the limitation.
Yeah, no, mine is faster than that because I have the smaller sensor.
And we're not talking about video mode. We're talking about like photos.
Yeah,
right?
camera, just plain old photos. Yep.
Yeah, okay. The A9 is up to 20 frames a second.
Anyway, 10 pictures for 1 second goes by faster than you think.
It is 10, yeah. So A7R III is 10, A9 is 20.
Oh, speaking of video, have you shot any video with it, or are you still just iPhone only for that?
I'm just iPhone only for that. I don't shoot, and I know this is like, it's weird. Like high-end cameras like this have themselves in a weird market where basically around the time of the Canon 5D Mark II, which came out in 2008, the SLR market shifted dramatically because the Mark II was the first widely available SLR that could shoot really good video. And like so good that it was actually better than a lot of pro video cameras at the time. And that trend has continued. And while pro video cameras now, are now better in certain ways and certain things, a lot of video is shot on SLRs and high-end mirrorless cameras. Like a lot of pro level video is shot using these cameras. And so video dictates a lot of their feature set because that's the people who are actually buying these things. So it's funny, like it's hard to find good reviews of these cameras if you're not into video because so many of the reviews focus so heavily on videos. So that's what so many of the buyers are. That's what so many of the features are for. That's what so many of the changes are every year. I really don't shoot video with fancy cameras very often. And it's not because it's not good. It looks great when you do it. It's because I'm not a good enough videographer to do it. And if I just shoot video with my iPhone, it turns out way better because the iPhone does a way better job at autofocus. And also the iPhone tends to be way better at, and also it has built-in stabilization, of course, but also the iPhone is way better at audio. Like whatever it does with its built-in mics and the noise cancellation that it does between them, it is way better at its built-in audio than the crappy little built-in mics that are on SLRs. And granted, pro video people don't use the built-in mics, or at least they shouldn't. So, there's not much of a market demand for the camera makers to make their camera built-in mics awesome. But if you're just a casual person shooting with what you have in your hand without any external equipment, the iPhone will shoot way better video and way better audio along with it than most of these cameras will do, in a layman's hands. We are sponsored this week by Linode, my web host of choice. Visit linode.com/ATP for more info and take a $20 credit. Use promo code ATP17 at checkout. Linode is a great web host. They can't pay me to tell you that. I'm telling you by my own volition. They are an awesome host, and it's where, you can see by my actions, it's where I host all my stuff because I've tried a lot of web hosts in my day, really a lot. I have been personally administering something like 200 servers in my career so far, and Linode is by far my favorite host. They have Linux VPS hosting. It is really good rates. They have plans start at just $5 a month. That gives you 1 gig of RAM. They also scale up to lots of plans, big and small, for all your different needs. I have plans. I have one that's 48 gigs for certain databases, and I use a lot of their little $20 plan and a little $10 plan, and these are great for servers. And you can run so much stuff on your own virtual server. The basic stuff like installing your own CMS and applications, developing applications maybe. You can also do stuff like host a Git repository. You can run Docker containers. You can run VPNs. There's so much control you have over a full Linux server with Linode, and it is just by far the nicest control panel I've ever seen. They have a nice API. It's easy to control everything and set things up and change things. It's wonderful. If you need a web host, you need Linode to be your web host. So check out Linode today at linode.com/ATP. If you use promo code ATP17 at checkout, you will get a $20 credit. That can give you 4 free months on their cheapest plan. That's a really good deal. They're also hiring. If you go to linode.com/careers, I bet listeners of this show could find a job there if you're looking for one. So anyway, check it out, linode.com/ATP. By far my favorite web host I've ever used. I just keep putting more and more stuff there because they just make it so easy and they're so much better than everybody else. So check it out, linode.com/ATP, code ATP17 for a $20 credit. Thank you so much to Linode for sponsoring our show.
So programming note.
Baby?
No, but I think we should choose wisely. So I have ARM Windows PCs.
See, we have different goals here. Your goal is to end the show early. My goal is to have you have to leave the show to have a baby. Because I think that would be amazing.
We're going to avoid that.
So why don't we just jump to Ask ATP immediately, and then we'll check back in and see how we're doing.
All right. Then you'll just restitch it all in post?
No, we'll just have a longer after show.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'm okay with that.
We'll just keep going the after show until that baby comes, damn it.
Yeah.
So, right. Casey, tell us more about your Jeep Wrangler ambitions.
Well, since you've asked.
I saw a broken down Wrangler on a tow truck bed the other day. I thought of you.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
I saw a Wrangler with purple, I assume LED rings on the headlights during the day. So it was like during the day, but there was 2 purple circles looking at me.
I think that's that's now stock on the newer ones. Not purple, of course, but like
really?
The new ones I think do have like angel eye style. I might be wrong about that.
Oh,
so
God.
double check my work on that, but I think that might be stock now.
That's
anyway.
I love that, like the Jeep Wrangler. If you just look in like not only how they can be configured stock, but like just look at what people do to them after the fact, and it's just a wonderful tour of bad decisions and bad designs and tackiness and horribleness.
It's not that bad. It's just it's a
so
different
bad.
purpose. The purpose isn't to be luxurious and fancy. The purpose is to break. Hopefully not itself, but whatever.
Well, unfortunately,
actually,
that doesn't. Unfortunately, it breaks itself quite often.
It occurred to me, I think it was earlier today, that I don't want the Accord because you can't get any of the nice fancy bits with it, with the one I would get. I may or may not want the Wrangler because it has, obviously, as much as I'm trying to defend it, a whole world of its own problems. I don't want a Golf R because I want a sunroof. I really friggin' love sunroofs. You can think I'm weird. You can think I'm crazy. I like a sunroof. It makes me happy.
I'm with you on that. Sunroofs are awesome.
Right. So in the Golf R, you can't get with a sunroof. So what do I'm out of options. I either go BMW and hate myself / maybe get a divorce, or I get like a GTI, which is wrong-wheel drive and not as fast, and then I'll hate myself for not having the Golf R.
No.
What do you do? What do you do? That's a rhetorical question.
Keep fixing your car until something better comes along.
That's probably the answer, but at that point, I'm going to run out
That's
of...
my Mac Pro technique.
Yeah, it's true. Actually.
10 years
That's a
later.
very good point. That's a very, very good point. Oh, man, that's funny.
Well, or alternately, keep fixing your car until you are like consulting millionaire and you can buy Julia.
Yeah, that's the answer. Actually, that doesn't have sunroof either. The
What?
Quadrifoglio doesn't anyway. I know. I mean, in a week, it didn't bother me.
Sunroof stink. I'm anti-sunroof.
Well, because you're tall and you hate things.
It's all right. There's nothing worse than having your hair touch the headliner. Nothing worse.
That is the best summary of your perspective on sunroofs. Is you're tall and you hate things.
No, it's true. Have you? I'm going to say Marco hasn't for various reasons, but Casey, have you ever had your hair touch the headliner in a car?
Oh, it's infuriating. But I have a couple of friends. I guess just one in particular that I'm thinking of that is about the same height as you. So I'm like 6 foot, give or take, an inch, depending on the day. And you're what, 6'2"? Is that right?
Yeah, but I got more neck. More of my height is above the belt line.
Oh, man. John, I love you. But anyway, the point I'm driving at is that he hates sunroofs, because sunroofs, whatever, because he's constantly complaining and moaning about his head hitting the headliner, because apparently it's worse when you have a sunroof. I don't really understand that, since there's...
Yeah, it intrudes into the interior space. That's why I never buy cars with sunroofs, because it makes most cars fit me with no sunroof. As soon as you put the sunroof in, head hits the headliner almost always, no matter how low you can make the seat go. It's true, even true in Hondas.
Yeah, because like they don't make the car, like the sunroof is thicker, and they don't make the car taller. They just make it intrude into the interior space.
And they don't make the seats go down lower either. Like they could do that. They could say, okay, on the sunroof models, the seat goes down an extra 2 inches, but they don't.
The problems of tall people.
Yeah, well, and I thought I had the poofier hair of the two of us, but whatever.
I used to have the poofy hair in my youth.
See, and this is only a problem if you are tall and have tall hair.
No, you don't need to have tall hair. If your physical skull hits the headliner, which can happen depending on the car, it doesn't matter what your hairstyle is. But it's almost worse when your skull doesn't hit it, but your hair just barely hits it because it gets all staticky and it's the worst. It's the worst.
Yeah, I really feel bad for you guys. That sounds awful.
You should. You should. I feel bad for your head sunburn, and you should feel bad for my tickly hair headliner thing.
Savage. Wow, this is getting aggressive. All right, let's tone it down.
I do always have to wear a hat in the summertime. It's funny. I actually can't use my sunroof in the summertime usually.
Aww.
Because I have to wear a hat, and then when I do, it blows off like if it's windy. So usually I get most of my sunroofing done in the off season, in like this fall, winter, and spring, when I can have it hat free and hopefully not get a sunburn on my head in January.
That's why Casey wants a Wrangler, no roof.
Right, I'm saying. Although it'll totally f up my hair every time, and so then I have a whole new world of problems.
Oh yeah, you're too vain for a Wrangler. Never mind.
I know, I'm saying. And by the way, Tim ____, I have never driven a GTI, and everyone I know who has ever had, that's the key phrase here, had a GTI, always says that I'm crazy to want the Golf R, the GTI is better. But I do know that I hate front-wheel drive with all of my being. And so that is one major reason why I suspect I would not like a GTI. I should try it, and I probably will try it if the time ever comes. But I hate front-wheel drive. And I'm swearing like a sailor because I'm assuming none of this is making the show.
You used to hate automatics too, and then you got the Julia. So.
Touche. It's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're really getting yourself into a BMW. Like with
I know.
more. But look, it's not a big deal. Like. Just know going into it in the same way, like when you buy an Apple product, we all love Apple products, but we also know that, okay, in 2 years, they're going to release something that makes this look ancient. And if it's an iOS product in 2 years, it's going to be a lot slower than when I bought it because the new OS will be slower on this hardware. You just kind of know that like this is going to degrade in my satisfaction or in actual usage in certain ways over time. You know that going into it, and so you plan for that. You do what you can to complain about it on podcasts, but for the most part, you're kind of stuck with it, and so you deal with it because it's better than buying Windows, right? And so like in this case, like if all the attributes of a car that you actually like a lot seem to really pretty much only be available on BMWs, it's not that ridiculous for you to buy another BMW, even though your current one has given you lots of service trouble. Just know going into it, make the decision accordingly that like this is going to cost money in repairs if I have to repair it. So you can then either you can make different decisions about things like how much do you spend on it in the first place? Maybe do you save a budget for repairs later, or do you lease something or finance something under warranty and then get rid of it or sell it when it's out of warranty? Like you can make different decisions. It doesn't mean you need to get something that is severely lacking in areas you care about just to spite this company that couldn't give less of a damn about you.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. And part of the reason why the Volkswagen line or train of thought is appealing to me is because they're now offering 6-year warranties. As far as I'm aware, anyway, they're offering 6-year warranties on all their cars. And I tend to own a car for between 6 and 10 years. So there is something appealing to me in having a car that is warranted for that long. And granted, I could get like an extended warranty I could have gotten an extended warranty for my car.
Oh, don't get those. But, those are pains in the, no, those are ripoffs.
Right. And that's the thing is that even if, like a buddy of mine who has a 2011 335, he got an extended warranty for his and had some sort of actually similar problem to my valve train, although I guess it was just starting to go and then fixed itself or something. I forget the details. I know that sounds funny. Just go with it. So anyway, he asked the extended warranty people, hey, can I go ahead and get this repaired? And they were like, well, if the car is not actively exhibiting the problem, then no. Despite the fact that the BMW tech was like, hey, we saw that this was a code that was thrown, so presumably it didn't do that for funsies. Yeah, so it's insurance all over again, right? It's just a freaking nightmare. But anyway, you're cheating and using my weakness to keep me on the microphone right now and talking about cars. But
accidental.
Mm-hmm. What we should do is we should do some Ask ATP. And Clint asks,
so do you think if you went BMW, do you think it would be
stop it?
Do you think it would be M3, M2, or M235i?
None of the above, because I can't afford it. Because you're making me quit my job.
The 235 line is really not that ridiculous.
Well, I can't put any kids in it then.
That's true. By the way,
why am I letting myself get into this? Stop. We need to do Ask ATP.
Have you given any more thought to quitting your job?
No. I've given an unreasonable amount of thought to that. Stop. Why am I allowing this?
How many offers have you gotten? Just ballpark.
I have gotten probably, I would say, less than 10.
Listeners, you know what to do. Keep going. Keep going.
Well, the problem is, to be honest, I've barely explored those because I've been so swamped with pre-baby insanity that I probably seem like the most reluctant independent worker ever because I have a couple of emails that I need to reply to. I just haven't had the time yet. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. But we should talk about Ask ATP, where Clint asks,
so
do you
as
think
the
Apple
Geek
will
points out in the
delay
chat
the
room,
Mac Pro?
Why do you have to put kids in your tiny car? You have an XC90. Like you could get a car that could fit in the XC90.
That is true. However,
like the M235 is a pretty small car. Like, and a pretty good one by all the reviews, right? Haven't you driven one?
Yes, I did drive a several-year-old one now. It was like 3 or 4 years old. As in, if it was still around today, the guy who owned it has since unloaded it for basically my car, actually. But at the time, it was maybe 2 years old, and it was magnificent. But
bingo,
among other things,
used M235.
That's a good answer, but the problem with that is, A, I'd want the M2. B, those are impossible to find and slightly unaffordable in C or 3. I don't remember which one I was going for. I do a preschool run with Declan, and I would like to be able to take Aaron, or I would like to be able to take both kids in the car and not leave Aaron stranded, because although Aaron is capable of driving a stick, Aaron doesn't think Aaron's capable of driving a stick, which means Aaron can't drive a stick. So it's a bad situation. But can we please do Ask ATP? I need to start ignoring the car talk because it's
is
my
the
weakness.
M2 available with a DCT?
So Clint asks,
let me see, because really a DCT
do you
is
think
so
Apple
close to
will
a
delay the Mac Pro? John, would you tell me, if you don't mind, do you think Apple will delay
Car and
the Mac
driver
Pro
test
release?
a BMW M2 DCT, so obviously it exists. Let's see. That looks pretty nice. And Aaron could drive a DCT.
We can do car stuff after askatp, Marco. Don't worry. We can string them along later. We just got to get through this.
Just work with me, people.
All
Work
right,
with me. So, good luck editing this one.
We are sponsored this week by Betterment. Rethink what your money can do. Visit betterment.com/ATP for more information. Betterment is the largest independent online financial advisor designed to help improve customers' long-term returns and lower your taxes for retirement planning, building wealth, and other financial goals. Betterment takes advanced investment strategies and uses technology to deliver them to more than 300,000 customers. Betterment also offers tax-saving strategies to help you increase your after-tax returns. On average, they have a tax-coordinated portfolio that can increase portfolio value by an estimated 15% over 30 years. And Betterment is advanced enough to consider all of your assets. They can give you a clear view of your net worth when you sync your outside accounts if you want to, such as bank accounts and other investments. They can show you how much your outside brokerage accounts might be costing you in fees and uninvested cash. And all of this is brought to you with very low fees compared to traditional services. There's only a 0.25% annual fee for their base plan with unlimited messaging access to their team of licensed financial experts. And if you want phone access, unlimited phone access to a team of certified financial planners, they offer that for only 0.4% a year. These are very, very good rates. Investing involves risk. ATP listeners can get up to 1 year managed free. For more information, visit betterment.com/ATP. That's betterment.com/ATP. Betterment, rethink what your money can do.
So Clint asks, do you think Apple will delay the Mac Pro release until a new CPU architecture has been designed? I personally don't think that'll be the case unless Intel says, hey, it's already designed and it's imminent and we'll have it out in a month, which will never happen. So no, I don't think so. Marco, what do you think?
Oh man, Sam McGee just found a used listing for a white M2. This is your car. This is perfect.
Concentrate, Marco. It's a Mac Pro question. You should be excited about this one. I'll answer because Marco's not into it. The reason Apple better not wait, because I think it's actually going to be longer than people think before there is a literal new CPU architecture that works around this issue, because this issue is deeply embedded into the way CPUs have been designed for many, many years. And unless Intel started on this project 4 years ago, a new CPU that solves this problem is not coming anytime soon. But more importantly, I don't want Apple to delay anything. They're going to continue to sell iMac Pros and all their other computers with these CPUs that are vulnerable to this with OS level workarounds, and that's what they're going to do with the Mac Pro too. So no delay. No delay for this anyway.
Yeah, the last thing you want is to give Apple a reason to delay the Mac Pro. Please don't give them reasons.
Even I would agree with that.
And that's on a thread on the Spectre Meltdown stuff, the exactly how long the timelines are for a new architecture. If you start today, we haven't been doing anything to mitigate this as yet. This unknown. We didn't know about Spectre Meltdown until a couple weeks ago or whatever. Let's start today on a new architecture. Let's take whatever project we've been working on and modify it to account for this. The timelines are long. It's not like, give us a couple months and we'll have a new CPU out. If you look at how long it takes to go from idea to actual design to, laying out, I don't know if they still call it taping out, to fabbing and verifying, those timelines are long. So don't hold your breath for brand new CPU architectures that completely eliminate this category of error. There could be smaller fixes coming to minor revisions of existing chips that help mitigate it or help make it so that the OS level workarounds don't have as big of a performance hit. That could happen in the near term if they scramble, but it's such a big change to actually make this category of bug not exist and also maintain performance that I think it's going to be years.
Also, keep in mind that the Mac Pro and iMac Pro use Xeon chips. Xeons are the last chips in Intel's lineup to get new microarchitectures. So whenever they fix it in their consumer chips, you're not going to see it in any kind of Xeon workstation for another 1.5 to 3 years after that.
Yeah. I don't want this to be delayed. And God, I just need to get through the Mac Pro discussion. And if I can get through the forthcoming Mac Pro discussion, like in future episodes, whenever it's announced, then I think the show may be able to last forever, because if I can make it through that, I'll be good. Bryson asks, John, I heard you say that High Sierra
got a great
bug.
message from a friend.
That's why I was distracted for a half second.
Messaging the three of us saying, "Can someone explain RX Swift? It's important I know this cold by tomorrow morning." Thanks. Casey, I think you know something about RX Swift. Can you help our friend out after the show?
Stop it. Maybe after the show. Why are you using all my weaknesses against me? Also, today I learned I have like 17 different flavors of kryptonite. Anyway.
So what is RX? Is that prescription Swift? What is that? What does that mean?
Yes, it's prescription Swift. Oh, God, I hate all of you, including our nameless friend. Bryson asks, John, I heard you say about the High Sierra root bug that you keep your root account enabled anyway, so you already had a strong password. For what reason do you need the root account? Why not just use sudo? What does root do that sudo can't? I'm actually curious to hear this as well, because I don't have a root account with a password, and I just use sudo for everything that I would need. And I do dive into the command line daily, but I strongly suspect I am not doing near as much in the command line as you are, John. So can you address this? Like, what's the purpose for the root account having a password, or is it just you needing a tinfoil hat?
It's the opposite, actually. Like, what you're doing is the better way to do things. Do everything as the user. Only do sudo when you need to do something with heightened privileges. But the worst habit that I do, because I'm old, is just hang out as root all the time. Because I don't use package managers. I compile and install things, myself. And it's just convenient to just always be root and have all of my source files owned by root and build everything as root. And that's incredibly dangerous to do that. You should not do this. I do not recommend this practice, but it is my habit. And because it's my habit and it's my computer, I do it. And many years of experience, including accidentally destroying a couple of OSs in my youth, has led me to be pretty careful and pretty safe, but still it's not a good idea. You should do everything as your user and just elevate privileges briefly, only when you need it.
Marco, any thoughts?
Nope.
About this specifically, for the love of God.
You know, I'm thinking of traveling to Manhattan. I wanted to know if you had any pizza recommendations.
There's so many kryptonite.
He only has one recommendation.
Yeah, it'll be quick. John Zableeker, moving on. Jim Andaway asks, Marco, did you ever buy a Sonos One with Alexa, and if so, do you like it?
No, I pre-ordered it, and then before it came out, when the reviews started coming out, I canceled the pre-order because I realized I didn't care that much. I have some Sonos stuff, but I wouldn't say I'm super in the Sonos ecosystem. I find their app fairly clunky for the things I want to do with my music, so I almost never want to actually use it for anything. So in the other side, I love the Amazon Echo and use it constantly, and it's very, very nice. And one of the things that the Sonos One I think was worse about is, like every Echo that comes out since the original Tower and Dot, it doesn't have the hardware volume dial on the top. And some of the other reviews said that they thought the microphones might be a little bit worse, or at least that they were having some trouble with them. And so I just decided, I don't need this, so just cancel it. And I'm very happy with my first generation Amazon Echo with the big hardware volume knob and the nice microphones, and it's totally fine. And I haven't bought any of the new Echoes yet either, because same reason basically. I'm very happy with the old one, and we don't really have any needs for any additional ones at this time.
All right, so how do we want to approach this? Do you want to do ARM and keep me here for 17 hours?
Yes.
Or do you want to do...
No, that's it. That's it. Time for the after show.
Well, I thought we were doing a longer after show. Are we talking about cars? Because that is...
Well, don't worry. We got plenty of stuff for the after show.
What do we have for the after show?
Thanks to our sponsors this week, Betterment, Linode, and Fracture. And we will see you next week.
Now the show is over. They didn't even mean to begin, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. John didn't do any research. Marco and Casey wouldn't let him, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. And you can find the show notes at atp.fm. And if you're into Twitter, you USS, so that's Casey List, MARCOARMENT, Marco Arment, SIRAC, USA Syracuse, it's accidental. They didn't mean to, accidental. Tech podcast so long.
My first question for Casey is, what system have you established for this podcasting recording tonight to be notified that it's time to stop podcasting?
There are several mechanisms. There is iMessage. There is Aaron coming in the room. Actually, I guess that's really it. It's basically either iMessage or Aaron storms in here and says, it's time.
Or screaming? The screaming
Well, I
one
was
of the
going to say
systems?
that. I was going to say that, but we are
would
basically
be
on
effective.
opposite corners of the house. So, yes, that would work, but it would need to be significant enough that it would wake up me and, well, not that I'm asleep, you know what I mean? Like, it would have to get through me, and it would wake up Declan, and Aaron has I don't want to use the word heroic, but I can't think of a better adjective, just a heroic threshold for pain. And so because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if she could go through something that would render me unconscious, and she just would, have like a little, that hurt, or something like that. So, anyway, I would expect that she would either iMessage me or she would just come storming in and say, this is it.
So I was worried that she's like having contractions now and she can't bring herself to even do a text message. So she's just down, in the other side of the house, bearing down, wishing you would know that it's time to stop podcasting. And here you are continuing to podcast.
That certainly could be, but I as of about half an hour ago, I was being kept abreast of the situation, and I sincerely doubt that's the case.
It's time to turn the baby monitor on mom so you can be aware of what's going on.
Actually, come to think of it, we did get an entire second baby monitor for Sprig, which we planned. Well, actually, what we ended up doing was just pairing the camera from the other baby monitor to our existing baby monitor, but it was like $20 more to get the whole monitor rather than to just get an extra camera, you know what I mean, or something like that. It was silly not to just get a whole redundant setup. So anyways, I bring all this up to say I could hypothetically put that baby monitor camera back on Aaron and take the redundant monitor in here. But no, as far as I know, she's asleep, which means if I sent her a text message right now, she'd probably be like, yep, it's coming sooner rather than later, but we'll see.
You think she's asleep right now?
As far as I know, she was trying to.
I mean, that's wise. Honestly, you should be sleeping right now if you're expecting
Yes,
this to
I
happen
know, Marco.
tonight or tomorrow.
I could be able to
Indeed.
get sleep. That's with my first kid. My wife's water broke at midnight. We were up. We were about to go to bed. It broke at midnight, and the doctor was like, "You should just go to sleep and come to the hotel. Come to the hospital in the morning." I don't think it's possible when you're having, certainly your first kid, and your wife's water has broken. Oh, we're just going to get some sleep now. Yeah, sure. Everyone we'll just nod right off. Nothing will be occupying our minds that keeps us from sleeping. So we just sat there in the bed, not sleeping for 5 hours, then went to the hospital.
Oh, God.
I can't imagine. Well, the thing is, especially for the women, like, granted, I haven't done this in a little over 3 years, but pretty much shortly after they arrive at the hospital and get, an IV put in and all that, they're told, or at least in our experience, Aaron was told, you can't eat anything anymore. And so because of that, everything becomes uncomfortable. Well, not that it wasn't already uncomfortable, but everything becomes more uncomfortable for the woman once you arrive at the hospital. So for a lot of reasons, most doctors will say, for the best that you can, or to the best that you can, try to avoid coming into the hospital until like it's really getting on go time. And so, and on the way into the hospital, go gorge yourself on some sort of fast food, because especially the mom is not going to be eating for a long time. So, as far as if I were to wager a guess, unless something is going on in there that I'm not aware of, I think tomorrow morning we're probably going to wake up, find somebody to, we have plenty of options, but find somebody to take care of Declan and probably call it in.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me, like, other than the system of notification, Declan's still hanging out in your house, snoozing away right now, too. What's the handoff plan there?
So we have neighbors that live very close by that, like walkably close by, that could come over. Aaron's youngest sister is a short drive away, and Aaron's mom is about 20 minutes away. And so there's, a multi-tiered approach that we can go to if if we need to leave in the middle of the night.
I'm getting flashback anxiety from the fact that you don't have someone in your house right now on standby Declan duty. The idea that you're going to have enough time for someone to show up at your house so that you'll be able to divert, right? Because it was my situation was we had a friend all lined up too, all hours of the night, no worries. Like you know, it's 3 a.m. and the time, just give us a call, we'll be there. And my friend was good to his word. He, was there. But by the time he showed up, the baby was out. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. That honest to God, your birth story, your and Tina's birth story, that has weighed on me heavily for the last month or two. And I'm not saying that to be funny. Like, I really, really has. Because so often Erin will be like, not just her, I'll be like, oh, well, your mom will be here in like 20 minutes. I'm sure that'll be fine. And then one of us will say to the other.
It should be. It totally should be. I mean, you know how long it was, Declan. You have plenty of time.
Exactly. And Declan was a very long birth, and so it should be fine. But then I think about poor Tina, who says, hey, why don't you go get the neighbor because I think it's time. And then next thing you know, oh, there's your youngest in the bedroom in your hands.
There was a lot of screaming and blood between those two phases, but yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I kid you not, I'll say it again, like your birth story, your mutual birth story for when your daughter was born has weighed heavily on me, especially in the last month. But for Declan, it was, I think, Monday morning. It doesn't really matter, but it was one morning, I think it was a Monday morning, that Erin woke up and was like, wow, I'm having a lot of Braxton Hicks, and then went about her day. Then it was the middle of the night Tuesday that it was becoming obvious that no, this was it. And we went into the hospital. I want to say it was Tuesday morning. And, by the time, we went to the OB to see if this was it. And the OB didn't even make her second leg in the doorway to look at Erin. She only had one foot in the doorway in the examination room, and turned around and shouted down the hall, hey, can you call L&D? We have one coming. And so that was a Tuesday morning, and Declan was born at like 5:30, 6 o'clock on Wednesday morning or something like that. So clearly not all of this was, well, it's easy for a dude to say this, right? But not all of this was like the hyper intense labor, but it was labor for like 2 full days. And so it stands to reason, he says as he knocks on his glass desk, because there's no wood nearby, that Sprague will not make a your youngest styled appearance, but we'll see about that.
Is it possible, given Erin's stated tolerance for pain, that you already have a second kid?
Right. Yeah, just hanging out. Sorry, you made a mess.
I have a
of
feeling.
I mean, we were talking about the iMac Pro for a long time.
That is true. And then cars even longer. No, it is certainly possible. I did send her a text message about 10 or 15 minutes ago, and she has not responded, which means either she is trying to sleep, is asleep, or there's a kid in the other room and I just don't know it.
I mean, you are on the other side of the house. I mean,
anything is possible. Do you want me to go check? Is that what you're trying to tell me? But yeah, it's funny because Erin and I don't know how much this comes across on the show. And I mean, I know you two know this, but for your average listener, I don't know if it's obvious. But Erin and I are both like super duper type A, super anal retentive. Love to have every T crossed, every I dotted, every minute planned. And it's funny because with this one, there's not a lot of planning you can do for a kid unless you have a scheduled induction, which we do have for a few days from now, but it's certainly not looking like we're going to make it. But anyway,
the official due date was yesterday, right?
No, it's today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it's on schedule.
So it could be right on time. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But I bring up us being anal retentive because when it comes to Declan, we're basically like, as soon as we have done that initial handoff that you were asking about, John, as soon as that happens, whatever, just somebody amongst my family, Erin's family, just figure it out amongst yourselves and make sure he's still alive in a day and a half or whenever it is that we can get him in the hospital so he can meet his little brother or little sister. So it's been funny for us to just have to embrace being that, like, I don't know, freewheeling, if you will, and just be like, hey, you know what? He's 3 years old. He's as reasonably self-sufficient in the sense that he's not going to live in a poopy diaper for 18 days because he's not using diapers, except at night. He's able to find, like, in a desperation scenario, for some reason, I'm sure he could scrounge up a little bit of, like, crackers or something. Not to say we're going to leave him home alone. I'm just saying, like, in the world-ending scenario.
You hear that, Declan? The new baby has already stolen your parents' love.
Yeah, just like that.
There's none left for you. Sorry.
Like, you realize in these scenarios, like, you're going to jail.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like, we would never do that. I'm just saying, if for some reason there was some sort of miscommunication, and I don't know why this is a terrible hypothetical, but
do you have a thing planned where, like, where the new baby is going to give Declan a present? We did that.
We've
for a second.
We've waffled back and forth on that, and we don't have a present, so I guess the answer is no. I don't really have a good answer on it. I see both sides of that story, and because we're so fresh off of Christmas and Hanukkah, that there's nothing that he's told us he's really seeking at the moment. You know what I mean? And I know that doesn't mean we can't get him something anyway.
He doesn't know what he wants yet, but what he actually wants is not another sibling.
Well, right now he's very enthusiastic about his other sibling, but I know...
yeah, they're great when they're inside mommy.
Exactly. Yeah, this is all going to change in just a minute.
They might get along, but like we did the gift thing. I don't know. This is probably my wife's idea, but I here to tell you it did not help. With my particular two children, it did not help.
Maybe a strategy is you can give him a gift that is worse than a new sibling in some way. that seemed like man, like when I was a kid, I remember like one Christmas I begged and begged and begged, only having seen it on commercials, for the remote control Typhoon hovercraft. And boy, was that terrible.
Oh, yeah, I had one of those.
That's why you don't let your kids watch commercials.
Oh, it was great, except it was terrible.
There's a reason why you don't see a lot of hovercraft in use in the world. And one of the reasons is you can't really steer them very well. Turns out friction is really nice, and they don't really have a lot of that. And so, yeah. And also they're incredibly loud, like at least the little remote control one. It's like, two little like hair dryers on the back of this thing for the 5 minutes or so that the battery lasts before it dies.
I was just about to say, because you're powering 3 different motors off of this like mid-90s, maybe even early 90s battery tech.
Yeah, it was a big like NiCad battery pack, like the size of like 8 AA's, one of those big yellow rectangles. It's like...
Yep. Oh, man, it was truly terrible.
It was no fun at all.
Oh, who is this? Who is this in the chat? Chloe de Guzman. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Just put the link in the chat, and this is what I had. Although I think mine was green, but this is what I had. And oh my God, it was amazing for the 2.5 minutes it was working. But it's funny because in this commercial, you see it running across water, which hypothetically it should be able to do.
Oh no, you can't do that.
But that's the thing, because if you take your finger off the throttle for even the slightest moment, then I don't remember the term for it, but the bag under it, like the buoyancy bag,
the skirt,
will deflate. Yes, the skirt. Thank you. The buoyancy bag, the skirt, the whatever, will instantly deflate, and then you sink your hovercraft, and that's that. So you have to like really, really commit if you're going to go across water. And I think possibly the most stressful moment of my childhood was when I did put it in a pool for like 5 seconds and drive it, and I think I was standing within like arm's reach of it. So if it started to sink, I could grab it because I loved this thing, even though it was a colossal piece of garbage.
Oh, I would just try to play with it indoors, and you just can't. Like, you're crashing into walls constantly. Like, there's nowhere you can go with it. And then, yeah, like I remember, like at the lake, I saw somebody had one, and they broke it because they took it onto the water. The back end of it sunk down for a split second, and when they put the fans back on, the propeller of one of the rear like propulsion fans hit the surface of the water and just broke. It was just these things were not built well, and yeah, this was just not. Oh, it was such a bad toy. Anyway, so I'm saying if you get definitely one of these as his new awesome gift, it is so much worse than having a new baby that he might then see the baby as like the upgrade.
Marco, I got to be honest with you. I think we've known each other something like 20 years, and we're pretty darn good friends. And I'm going to have to tell you, I'm a little disappointed in you because clearly the right answer for a gift for Declan is either a brand new M3 or a brand new Wrangler. Like that's the only reasonable solution to this problem. Am I right?
M2. Honestly, the M2 is the better car for your purposes. I mean, the only thing is that you do lose the 4-doorness of the M3. So in that way, I guess you probably should get an M3 because it's the more continuation of what you already have. But as like an enthusiast car, I really think the M2 is the way to go. Not to mention, it's probably a much better value. Downside, of course, being, as you mentioned earlier, that there's not that many of them, and most of them are not used. And yeah, of course, 2 doors.
But now that you're on the automatic bandwagon, and BMW, I still think is in a down period. You should consider, something like DeMuro's car, like an E63 AMG or the modern one. Like these are fast, high quality 4-door cars with plenty of room that are very safe, reliable, not that cheap if you get an old one, or not that expensive if you get an old one. And you'll be fine with the automatic. You don't need to shift anymore.
You're talking about good Mercedeses? Aren't you too young for that?
Yeah, I mean, like in the current generation of cars, like I said, BMW didn't finish in any of the Car and Driver's 10 best for like the first time in a very, very long time. And there are Mercedes in there. The Mercedes E, especially the AMG ones, are fast and fancy. I mean, the Giulia's still a better car than them, but the Mercedes are probably more reliable, definitely more swanky, and we know Casey needs to be babied in his old age.
No, but the problem is he's not old enough. Like 15 years ago, WRX would have been the right move. 15 years from now, Casey might be Mercedes. But right now, Casey?
You got the wrong image of Mercedes. This is not your father's Mercedes. Plus, as soon as that second baby arrives, it will age him instantly like 10 more years. So it's a multiplying for how old you feel.
He's still going to need 5 more years before they're going to let him into a Mercedes dealer.
No, you get the AMG ones. It's fine.
No.
Actually, to speak about how old and entitled I am, who was I talking to just the other day? Shoot. It was my buddy who just got the brand new Accord, coincidentally. And he was saying that he had to bring his in. I think he was getting like an aftermarket, but dealer installed. Erin is awake and she has not had the kid. Real-time follow-up.
All right, good.
Baby's still inside wife. Repeat, baby's still inside wife.
and it seems that things are just not regular. So whatever. Anyway.
Are things ever regular?
Fair point. The Accord guy took his car in for service to get like some aftermarket thing installed. I forget what it was. I think it was like a rear USB charger or whatever. I think there was like a Honda part that he could have installed so you can charge something via USB in the back. Anyway, he was talking about how he had to go to Enterprise to get a loaner, and I was just like, my face kind of imploded. It was like that, oh God, you have to go to get a loaner? To like, they don't just give you one?
Oh yeah, so this is to show how you can't go back again to live like the little people.
Right. No, I'm serious. Like, in all, I'm saying this partially to be funny, but I mean, I really did have that brief reaction of like, oh God, that's right. You would have to like go somewhere to get a rental. And that just sounds freaking terrible. And like, listen to how obnoxious and entitled I am. Like, I'm not proud of this. I'm really not. I'm just saying, as soon as you cross that threshold into quote unquote luxury automobiles, you start to get used to this thing, and it's hard. Like, this is why I can understand why all these like athletes and movie stars and whatnot are entitled, because once you get exposed to that, it's like, well, I don't want to go back to having to worry about going down to one car while my car gets serviced. That seems barbaric. And then then the next thought that goes through my head is, wow, Casey, you're an asshole. It's like, it's really not a big deal.
BMW driver.
So fair point. I have no argument.
The one tip though for people for peons like me who have Hondas and go to Honda dealership is depending on your dealership, you can find my dealership. Speaking of Enterprise, has Enterprise rental counter right in the dealership, and if you get any significant amount of service done, you get the rental for free. So essentially, you get a loaner Honda for free as part of your service without having to go in anywhere. So it's like I'm not going to say low rent, but it's the equivalent version of, so you bring in your BMW, here's a BMW to drive. So you bring in your Honda, here's a Honda to drive. No charge if whatever you're having done is above some minimum amount of money. And if you're going to a dealer, it probably is, because dealers charge $1 million for everything, even Honda dealers. But yeah, it's a little bit different not having that be an amenity of the dealer, but having it be like, well, we have this relationship with Enterprise, and I've never paid for an Enterprise rental, but I have gotten free Enterprise rentals many times. How I know how much I hate all of the Honda Accords that I didn't buy is all from essentially loaner cars when my car is getting serviced. The other way I do it, the way the little people do it, is I sit there and wait for my car to be done.
I've done that from time to time, and here, so confession, my first thought was going to be to complain about my local BMW service, waiting area, because it just isn't as cushy and nice as some other BMW dealers I've been to. How far gone am I? Like, how much of a friggin' jerk am I that the first thought that jumps through my head is, yeah, but John, you don't understand that the service area in this local BMW is just okay. Like, it's very nice.
A service area. You mean a bunch of chairs shoved next to a water cooler?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, how obnoxious am I? Like, I need to get a regular person's car so I don't lose myself forever. I need to buy like a pedestrian Civic. Oh God, I'm so terrible.
Well, it's different amounts of luxury because the number of valve trains I've ever had explode in any of my cars is 0. So I have that going for me.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't need a loaner if the thing is never getting serviced for more than an hour at a time.
I've never had a repair that has cost as much as my car was worth.
Yeah, truth. Too soon.
Oh, how much? So that repair, if you didn't pay for it, right? Because it was like warranty or whatever. But if you had paid for it, it would have been like $5,000 or something.
The valve train issues.
Yeah,
it was like $5,000 or $6,000, of which I paid, I think, 5 or 10% of it. What ended up happening was, well, for all the things that were done during that visit, I think the total bill was like $6,000, of which I paid about $1,000.
And so, what was the value of your car at the time you had a $6,000 repair?
$20,000 to $30,000, I think, and now it's probably $10,000 to $20,000.
All right, so you were like a quarter of the value of your car in repair.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like that. And then remember, it happened again about a year and a half later, but they covered that, not literally under warranty, I guess, but
it's scheduled. It's coming up soon, right? Your next one. that warning light that it threw.
Why you do this?
I was thinking of you when I was reading.
Oh, this is scary.
I don't remember where I was reading it. It might have been a paper magazine, might have been the internet. It's really hard to tell these days. But it was talking about BMW's electric car programs and how battery technology is getting better, and BMW engineering bragging that their sort of like service lifetime of their electric cars, it's exactly the same as it is for their gasoline cars. And all I could think was, that's nothing to brag about given the apparent service lifetime of Casey's car. Like, it's like, this battery will last you 15 years. Well, they're like 70% capacity after 15 years of use. It's like, well, what is the service lifetime of how old is your car now though?
It just had its 7th birthday. Like, it was delivered to the original owner in early December of 2010.
I feel like that's not a 15-year service lifetime.
I mean, it is. Like, again, I'm very frustrated with my car, but really in the grand scheme of things, like, this was a pretty significant repair, a very significant repair. But in the grand scheme of things, like, the car sitting here now, as far as I'm aware, I drove it earlier today. The car is operating very, very well. It has a few squeaks and a few rattles, but nothing too terribly egregious. It's really running pretty darn well. The thing is, I've had to pour way more money into it than I think I should have had to. And that's the problem I have with it. This is in comparison to Erin's Mazda, which, I was happy to get rid of, but that thing we took delivery on her birthday in 2007. So that was August of 2007, and we got rid of it in July of 2017. And I think we might have done an alternator once, and I think we did a battery. And other than that, it was just like tires and brakes and, normal wear items. And so in 10 years, we put, let's get aggressive, and let's say we put like $2,000 of wear item worth of repair into that Mazda in 10 years. And I did that in 10 minutes when my valve train exploded for the first time. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard because on the one side I feel like, oh, this thing has been on the whole reasonably reliable if you discount all the times that it exploded for a week.
As much as I am slightly bothered by Doug DeMuro videos, one thing I have to admit that he has going for him is he picks interesting cars to review. Not the new ones, obviously, because like whatever, everyone's doing fancy new cars, or not even the fancy exotic ones. But when he goes to older cars, he tends to pick cars, at the very least, that have some meaning to me. And the most recent one he did was the late 80s, very early 90s Mercedes S-Class.
I saw that was a thing, but I'm way behind on YouTube because I'm way behind on podcasts.
Yeah, my friend's dad had one of those that he bought used. He didn't buy it new. He owned his own business and he had some money, but not new Mercedes money, but he had used Mercedes money. And I took a couple of trips with his family in that car. I think that's where I started to get super impressed by Mercedes, because even just being a passenger, the difference in every aspect of that car, from the fancy yuppie cars my parents had, like a series of Volvos and stuff, and Hondas, and before that, a bunch of American junk cars, was very impressive. So I've just started that video, but it's really taken me back to see like the switchgear on the 80s Mercedes, and those Mercedes. I mean, they're they're not sporty cars, like, let's put it this way, but they just felt so solid, and every part of it was so ridiculously over-engineered. Very, very German in the best possible way. And I think sometimes I think that you might be happier with a older used car that you get cheaper, it's so old that you know you're going to be sinking money into it, but you pick it based on like character or nostalgia or, you know, something like that, where you instead of going for it has to be like modern, super fast, like resign yourself to actually getting a slow old car that has a lot of character. Maybe that's what the Wrangler is to you. I don't know. In which case you should not buy a new Wrangler. You should buy a used one.
So the real answer to what you're describing is I would kill almost everyone I knew for an E39 M5. So this is early 2000s. It's 6-speed only, V8, about 400 horsepower. And in a lot of ways, I think that's the right answer, because they can be had for, last I looked, which is a long time ago, between $10,000 and $20,000 for a reasonable example that hasn't been too badly obliterated. But the thing is, as they get older and older and older, they get more and more and more finicky, and thus require more and more and more repairs. So now I'm trading a reasonably modern BMW that's constantly in need of repair for an older and more interesting BMW that's constantly in need of repair. So,
but it costs way less. Like, just set aside double the price of the car for repairs for the next
sure.
8 years, right?
Yeah,
like Marco was
fair.
saying. And you still come out ahead versus buying a brand new Mercedes at some ridiculous price once you add all the options in.
Yeah, like it like the price of getting a car new is so much more than maintaining an old one, generally speaking. Like, if what you're concerned about is total long-term value, John's right.
Well, and that's why I bought the BMW used is, you know, I suppose if you balance the checkbook, if you will, we could have afforded to buy a new 335, but it would have been a financially unwise decision to make. And that's why, you know, I saved like 15 grand off the sticker by buying the car that I just told you was delivered in December 2010. I bought it in September 2012 and saved like 15 grand. And the reason that I'm harping on new cars for me, because otherwise, were it not for what I'm about to tell you, I would absolutely be looking at either lightly used new-ish cars or something ancient like John's describing. But the problem I have is that I've gotten it in my brain, for better or worse, that I really, really do not want to buy a car that does not support CarPlay. Because to my eyes, that kind of future-proofs the infotainment in a way that my car can't be. And I can get updates for my infotainment to some degree, but it's never going to change the fact that it's like a 5-pixel by 5-pixel display, and that it's got a terribly slow processor that can't handle zooming. Like, remember, Marco, when we were in the M5 and I zoomed the map for the first time, or maybe you zoomed the map, and I was like, wait. It actually zooms. It doesn't just jump between zoom levels. It actually animates the zoom, and it blew my mind. And so because of that, I've gotten it in my brain that I want something with CarPlay. And I'm pretty darn sure the Wrangler has it. I know the Golf R has it. That's part of the reason why that and the sunroof are reasons why I genuinely don't think, money no object, I would have the Alfa Romeo, because it does not support CarPlay and the infotainment system was at best mediocre. And so if you look at my obnoxious requirements, like I'm the world's worst consulting client, right? Because I want 3 pedals that go 0 to 60 in 5-ish seconds, that's not front wheel drive, that supports CarPlay, that has a sunroof. You know, these requirements, the only thing, and this comes back around to what Marco was saying, pretty much the only thing that meets all these requirements is a brand new 340. But the other requirement I have is not BMW. So now what? You know,
your requirements are so defined by your experience with BMW, though. Like, that's
Fair.
why I'm saying, like, you know, if you get an older car, forget about CarPlay. Just take your phone, get a phone thing that clips into the vents, and shove your phone on the dash. There's your navigation. Now it will never go out of date. You keep buying new phones and clipping them in the clip, and then just get a car with character that has some sort of nostalgia value that you can get cheap, that you will put $5,000 into every single year, and it'll just be your little hobby fun thing. And that will be slow. That'll be slower than a Civic Type R or whatever. But, you know, just I don't know. I guess maybe the Mac Pro strategy is the thing to do, and just keep on keeping on until that thing really explodes for good.
I mean, that very well may be the thing. And actually, it was funny because just before we got on the microphones tonight, I was brushing my teeth and I was thinking to myself, you know what? If I really am serious about this, you know, consulting or whatever, you know, thing I want to do instead of a jobby job, if I'm really serious about this, the number one change I need to make in my life is to not be telling myself, well, you might be able to swing a new card in 2018. The first thing that needs to happen is I don't drop thousands upon thousands of dollars on a new car, even something new to me. Like, I do not need to be getting anything new. And to your point, John, I need to just drive my BMW until it falls apart, or at least at the very least, drive my BMW until I've proven to myself that, Casey List Incorporated is making money. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing. That's a perfectly fine decision to make. It's just a less exciting decision to make.
Well, but this is going to be a year of lots of changes. Like, even if you don't change your job situation, you still are going to have a second kid in like 3 minutes. And so that's that's going to be a huge, massive change, in addition to just all of the, developmental stages and things that Declan is going through during this time. So like, you're going to have a big change this year. You might be, in many ways, this might be a bad time to buy a new car because you're just too busy with other stuff. Buying a car, especially for somebody like you who cares about it, is a time-consuming endeavor, as you know, because you just bought the Volvo 2 weeks ago or whatever. Like, you know how much time it consumes to go through that process. You also, therefore, can probably see, like, even if money wasn't the problem, it's still not probably a good idea for you, car nerd Casey, who cares a lot about things, to embark on this on that kind of mission right now. Well,
we get this straight. Starting a consulting business, good time. Buying a car, no, you're too busy.
Yeah, honestly, yes. Because look, your job stuff is going through a bunch of transitions regardless, because you have this time off, and you have this new person that they hired or whatever, that so you have training and time off, and then you're gonna have to go back and get plunged into the deep end of, oh my god, I'm back to work again in 2 months or whatever, and that's going to suck completely. No matter how happy you are with that job and how happy they are with you, that's going to be a massive transition to jump from paternity leave, full-time dad at home, to still having to be full-time dad at home, and also then jumping back into work. Like, that's a huge transition. So it's going to be a very busy spring for you. Even if you don't go back to, or even if you don't do consulting instead of going back to work, it's still going to be a very busy spring for you. So it's only a question of which of these busy paths you take. But to add on top of that, buying a new car as a car enthusiast, I don't think it's a good time for that.
Well, I see both sides of this, right? Because part of the reason it took us forever to buy the Volvo is because we were trying to extract the lowest possible price that we could achieve from several different dealers in several different states, right? But and that's partially because the Volvo was, if I'm honest, a little outside the price that we were willing to pay, but we were, reaching, just like, first time home buyer, at least this was my experience. When we bought the house that we're in now, we found it, even despite the fact that it was more expensive than we told ourselves we would be willing to pay. But anyways, I think if I really was hell-bent on buying a car and I had carte blanche from Erin to do it, which I think, if I looked at her and said, no, really, it's time, I need to get one, I don't think she would really be opposed to it. But anyways, if I think within a day or at most a weekend, I could drive the 3 to 6 cars I would like to drive to try them out to see what I think. And if I'm not nickel and diming the dealer to death over every little thing, I think I could have it done in a weekend. Like, I understand what you're saying, Marco, and the typical Casey approach is to nickel and dime and to email every dealer in a 3 to 5 state radius and say, this is what I want and what's the best price you can give, and then argue with them when they inevitably don't tell me the best price they can give, because they're incentivized not to tell me the best price they can give.
Well, even beyond that, there's the research beforehand. There's all the thinking and reading and stuff you're doing beforehand to even look to see what's...
Anyway.
That's true. But, there's all that. Then... Even then you get the car, then you have to do registrations and license, there's paperwork to have a car. There's things that you have to change or activate about the new car, about your various, there's a lot of overhead to it, and if you're going to be spending a lot of overhead in the next few months on something, I think priority 1 is baby. Priority 2 is Declan. Priority 3 is Aaron. Priority 4 is yourself, and then priority 5 is job situation, and then maybe priority 11 is I kind of want a new car also. Like this is such a weird time to do that. It's just not. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, fair. I don't know, John. You've been quiet. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking you should go to bed.
I like that idea.
Get all that restful sleep that you're going to get.
Get the sleep while you can.
No, I was saying I think you're probably not going to get a lot of sleep, especially
I know.
Well, I guess we're gonna lose this. I guess you're not gonna have a baby on the air.
Let's pick some titles. You still got time.
Oh God bless America. You're right.
Would it be insensitive for me, if Aaron ran in to say this is time? Would it be insensitive of me to ask you to please put your file in Dropbox before you go?
Actually, yes, because I'm going to bring my adorable with me, and as you both well know, unless
you're
it's
not. He'll have plenty of time while she's
seriously
doing the hard work of birthing a baby. He'll be sitting there tapping away on his laptop. How's it going over there?
Well, no, maybe a lot of it's
really
just waiting. No, I'm serious. I had my computer with me. I had my computer with me when Declan was born, and up until the overnight when he was born, like I said earlier, he was born at 5 a.m. Up until that overnight portion, she was basically just waiting around getting what's the drug that makes the that they use for inductions?
Pitocin.
Thank you. Yes, she was getting her Pitocin drip or whatever, and just kind of waiting. It took forever to get to the point that it was all hands on deck. This is it, and so. I had a computer. I don't remember what we were doing, but I definitely had some downtime. In fact, you should have seen Erin's face when I asked her where my Switch was, and I told her it was because I wanted to bring it so we could play Mario Kart together. She did not find that funny at all. I thought it was hilarious, and I was also serious, but she did not see the humor in it at all. Anyway,
if you're going to bring the Switch, you got to at least bring a Pro Controller for her so that she's comfortable while using it.
Right? I will. I was debating bringing the dock, but I won't. But I will have a HDMI adapter.
What are you plug it into?
The TV in the room. Why not?
Casey's got a whole little setup over there. He's got snacks. He's got a Switch. He's got a little TV set up. He's got a fan blowing on him.
You bring in a dorm fridge,
We have snacks packed. Don't even worry.
Oh my God,
sir! The birthing tub is for your wife.
It is. My bad. I've been trying to get the most recent episode of This Is Us onto my adorable, so the two of us can watch that while she's just sitting there waiting for things to happen. But anyway, so
is that how she sees it? Just sitting there waiting? Is that
to some degree, because she knows how Declan went, and she knows that there was a lot of sitting and waiting. But here again, there's Tina and John's second birth, where it's you sure you're going to be doing a lot of sitting and waiting? Because
we'll see. Not. I mean, it'll almost surely go faster than the first, but how much faster? Who knows? If it's half the time, it's still many, many hours, right?
Exactly. Anyway, we should do titles.
My pick is A Heroic Threshold for Pain in honor of Aaron.